We got little babies here. Somebody just said their daughter's 10 years old. In 8 years, that kid is going to get out of high school. What's the world going to greet that child with? How are we going to prepare for that child when he comes out of high school in 8 years? Who's going to employ him? Us? Well, at the rate we're going, we're not employing. You're going to have to look at an Asian, a Caucasian, or an Arab, and I call them all Arabs. I don't know where they're from, but they're all Arabs. It's going to employ them. We're not employing ourselves. And one of the main impediments to black businesses succeeding, developing, and growing is access to capital. We don't have the access to capital that some of these other ethnic groups have. Other ethnic groups come and they practice our philosophy. Ujima, cooperative economics, they practice that. The Koreans come in, they practice cooperative economics. Before they get here, other than getting subsidies from the United States government, they save their money in Korea, 10 families, put their money together, send one over. Buy a bodega. That bodega gets running, they call for another family, buy another bodega. Now they own every bodega from, well not now, but back in the 80s, they owned every bodega in Harlem. And then they switched it over, they left, and the Arab came in and took the bodega. You don't even know when that switch occurred, because it was seamless. One day you went in, you handed your money to a Korean, the next day you handed it to an Arab. And it didn't dawn on you. Between 125th Street and 135th Street, there's 10 bodegas selling the same thing. Boston College, based on government money. The brothers got the water hose and the dogs sicked on them so that I could go to college. And I took that money that the government gave me and went to a white university instead of turning around going to one of the historically black universities. Now what's happening? The historically black universities are starving for cash. But yet they got all our best talent in the white universities. So these are all good business decisions on the part of somebody else. But in order to pull that good business decision off, they got to make you not trust yourself. This way, the membership fees coming in, if we got 1 million members that's paying $3 a month, how much is that a month? That's $3 million. They're building a Red Lobster up here on 125th Street. I asked the guy, how much does it cost to build that Red Lobster from first dirt out to first customer coming in? And he was telling me it cost about $11 million. So, if we had 1 million $3 members, 3.5 months we can go to Red Lobster. Now Red Lobster's going to make millions of dollars a week. Now I ain't saying years. I'm saying that Red Lobster's going to make millions of dollars a week. Now the profit from that business goes back in for reinvestment.
And this brother now speaks 7 different languages, has written 70+ books. I want y'all to stand up for the young people. Stand up for this young brother. Stand up and give this brother a round of applause. His name is Brother Polite, also known as an appellation as Nasuk Amun Ray, son of Two Ray. Give him a round of applause. Brother Polite is in the building. New cabinet.
Here it is, a man had his own import and export. When blacks purportedly were being held back, he showed forth and proved despite the obstacles, despite the blockades. There ain't an excuse big enough. He still persevered. We don't get that part of the doctrine though. They don't tell us how to grow our own food or how to acquire land or how to set up our own schools. Somehow we was left with the religion. So Dr. York, they say, man, this brother says he's from Planet Riggs. That's the only thing they got from Dr. York. Dr. York on both sides of the street for an 8-block stretch down Bushwick Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. He owned his own movie house. He gave our members both sides of the street to live on. There wasn't one person who lived on any one of those 8 blocks on both sides of the street that wasn't part of the community. But they'll tell you about Man from Planet Risk in a heartbeat, but they will not tell you that this man provided housing for 8 blocks down in a drug-infested community, so much so that Ed Koch, the former referee of boxing, had to give him an award because they stopped something that even the police couldn't do. The good and the righteous. We in the last days. All of this, we gonna get all black people to rise. That's crazy. All of this, you know, black people are just corrupt because of what the white people are doing. Listen, there's something inside of all of us that gives us the ability to discern right from wrong. There ain't an excuse I got in the world for anything that I do wrong. We gonna be held accountable for our actions one way or another. We can pass the buck all we want, but that's not gonna get us out of the situation. That's clear as they living here in 2013, still seeing us in the same state we were in. Dropped off by great leadership. So it has to change. And the only way it's going to change is if we come up with an incentive to see to that who they shouldn't be with. But he don't know where he should be at to make money. He can read your palms and he can tell you that you don't belong in New York. You belong in California. But he can stay and live in the projects as deep as he is with his palmistry. He got hands of his own, you know. He ain't reading your shit without hands. Why he living poor like that? This is insane. But he burnt his fingerprints off? What's going on? Don't make sense. Let's go to the next one. And you say, you just be knocking people. I ain't knocking people. I ain't saying a name. I don't have to say a name. That's how deep this information is. It just targets you if you're full of it. So here it is, God's kingdom. Stairway to God's kingdom. According to dictionary definition or Macintosh dictionary application, sovereign means a supreme ruler, especially a monarch, royalty status. We was told that we weren't sovereign. Somebody told me that. Someone's making us afraid to be sovereign. So you don't want to do that. You don't say you're sovereign. So I'm trying to figure this out because I know sovereign means alluding to the royalty status of a king. You look it up in any dictionary. I don't know what other people say sovereign means. Look it up. Bloodline, a royal bloodline. It's in my genes to be sovereign. I am where I come from. And only way my ancestors were sovereign was because that consciousness, that status, filtered into their consciousness from the sovereign corporal creator. So I got black folks telling me, man, you can never be ruled. You can never be sovereign. You don't rule nothing. You can't tell. I'm not in that state of mind. That's why I have all of you. That's why I have all of you. That's why I could buy my wife here a Benz 3-4 weeks ago. That's why I could buy my wife here a drop top Mustang 3-4 weeks ago. That's why I could drive my 2013 that I bought in December, the end of December last year, 2012. No, why? I don't have limitations. I have no limitations. I didn't understand what you're talking about. The white man, I don't even understand that. I don't even know how long they can be. That's the same mind I'm in.
That's good, bro.
I don't even know how someone can be like me. I'm not there. I'm not there. I can't understand. People trying to wrestle with me. I'm not letting it go. I can't be defeated. I can't let it go. I just can't shake it. I try to be a sucker like the rest of these brothers out here. I try to believe the white man is my devil. I don't have a devil. I haven't seen one that can stop me. I ain't seen one person that can take me off my path yet. So I want to shepherd. I'm telling you, he's not my boogeyman. You keep the boogeyman. I grew up a long time ago. I don't need a boogeyman. I'm 29 years old. I don't need a boogeyman. Every step of the way I go, somebody scheming on me. That's what you're telling me? I don't believe it. We ain't never going to succeed in America. I am. But watch what happens. You can hold your breath. You're going to die. Because at the end of the day, people don't realize. It wouldn't matter if everything that I got, all my houses and everything, it wouldn't matter if it was all taken away. The purpose that I'm on this planet for is to build my castle. That's it. So if I was to gain everything and lose it all, it wouldn't kill me. But imagine a person that never gained a thing. You see, I live in a world where racism exists. I live in a world where black belts exist, not just white ones. I live in a world where capitalism exists. I live in a world where there's tyrannical fascists in our midst. And despite all of that taking place, I still manage to transcend all of that and acquire my assets. See, we don't want to use this. See, white man ain't going to follow that. this white man you talk about, this country you talk about, is a 501c3, not-for-profit organization, registered in a jurisdiction known by the misnomer of Delaware, with an executive branch in New York, legal fiction. So a corporation is known at law as a legal person. So you can see the word legal person there, nigga, you're talking about actual flesh and blood, but you're talking about paperwork. Let's go to the next one, and that's important. The birth certificate data. Because when you was born into this world, what happened? The state turned your information over to the Department of Commerce. This is true. They turned your information over, your existence over to the Department of Commerce, and they created a company out of your existence.
So you see what this is? He's the boss man, he is the boss. I gotta stand up and you know how it is, dog. I gotta stand up and go. I already know.
So 97% of our money, when we get paid, they say how the money doesn't bounce in the black community. It bounces in other communities about 7 times. It doesn't bounce in the black community at all because we spend it before we get home. When we get paid, we start spending the money on the way home. We also don't have institutions in the community that the money can bounce in. So here's our concern. Everybody in this society, every community in this country, from the corporate community to other ethnic communities, every community is enriched by black spending except the black community. Now there was a speech once where Malcolm said, he was talking about nonviolence. You all heard that? And Malcolm said, you bark when the white man says bark. You fight when the white man says fight. And you bleed when the white man says bleed. We can use that same analogy. See, you buy when the white man says buy. And you buy what the white man says buy. But when it comes time to spending and turning your dollars back into your own community, then you don't have any money. Then you have questions and reasons why you can't spend your money stabilizing your own community. Then you see people, black folks, coming to a restaurant. Black people would come to my restaurant as a group. There'd be maybe 5 or 6 people, and they're having lunch together, and the waitress will bring the check. When the waitress brings the check to a group of 5 or 6 black people in a black business, the group takes the check, they start scrutinizing it, they start checking what was this, double check the tax. You know you've seen that. Take that same group into a white restaurant. They bring the check, the person hands the waitress the card, and never even looks at the bill. Always trying to demonstrate to other people how rich we are and how prosperous we can make them. But when it's time to support your own, then you don't have any money. And so we continue to spend, and we are pleased with being trendsetters and engaged in activity that enriches everybody but us. We begin to talk to black folks about spending money in our own community. And black people come and here, you go to a black restaurant, and when they say, when the food comes, the end of the meal, folks say, no, it was really good, but a little bit too salty. Other than that, and the iced tea was a little bit too sweet. You know, the biscuits, one brother told me, Bob, the biscuits are cold as ice. Can you heat up the biscuits? I had a brother come into my restaurant once and asked for something that wasn't on the menu. It wasn't even on the menu. We said, but we don't have that kind of fish. He said, okay, it's no problem. What you do is you go back in the kitchen and you put this in it and you put that in it. So here's a guy who came to a restaurant with a recipe and then gives you the recipe to go back in the kitchen and cook a dish. When he goes to Red Lobster, he never mumbles such a word. And then we begin talking to black people about a seafood cafe. Black people say, well, I don't really like fish. I'm not really into seafood. Y'all ever been to Red Lobster? There's nobody in there but y'all. Black people cleave to seafood. It all depends on who owns it. And there's no red lobster in any black community. It doesn't have to be. Black people will go to the red lobster wherever it is. Until a black person owns the seafood restaurant, then you don't like seafood. Because it's when you control your money. It's when you strategically direct your money. That is when your money turns into power. So we want to use our spending to be able to stabilize our community and be able to influence policy. Be able to tell people that if you want to continue to get this money, this is what you must do. Then it turns into power. And if we use our money to stabilize our own businesses, stabilize the local economy, then it begins to turn into power. And so we launched a campaign, the $1 Billion Black Spending Power Campaign. Phase 1, there's only phase 1. Phase 1 of the $1 Billion Black Spending Power Campaign is of asking every single black person, every one of y'all, to make a commitment to spend $20 a week in a black-owned business.
All right.
Everybody. When we're able to even say to businesses, including black businesses, here are the number of people who have pledged to spend $20 a month, $20 a week in a black-owned business. And the brother who's working with us, Norm Barnes, stand up, Norm. It is his website, Buy Black All Year Long. This campaign has been organized, Norm is from Philadelphia, this campaign is being organized nationally. And there are a number of other components of the campaign that we're going to do. And black businesses are buying into the campaign. And ultimately what we want to do is make sure that we are able to support and sustain the black media, because so that people can find that business. But I need you to go to Buy Black All Year Long and click on the pledge and pledge that you are going to spend $20 a week in a black-owned business. And now, I want you to welcome our brother, Dr. Claude Anderson.
I want you to stand up for him. Come on, stand up. Power-Nomics in the building. Very little people in the building. Black labor, white law in the building. More dirty little secrets in the building. The former assistant secretary of the U.S. Department of Commerce in the building. He helped Jimmy Carter become the president in the building. When this man talks, y'all listen. He's like E.F. Hutton.
Thank you. Thank you very much, my brother. Again, I'm delighted to be back here in New York. Again, I saw a sign this morning saying, I love New York. But they closed this damn place. I love being here. They closed this morning. This is the one thing I wore. But I do thank Bob Law again for inviting me back to New York. And I appreciate your applause, and I appreciate all of my supporters, particularly those who bought my books and purchased my books. And I'm glad to be back with you. Because black people, even though some of them were reported, you all some magnificent, beautiful people, and I love you, okay? What I want to say to you this morning, though, is that Bob asked me to do some very specific things, so many breakdowns, so many things in terms that you all can very easily understand, particularly some of the statistics. He asked me to focus on three things for you. First, talk about inappropriate behavior. Two, talk about the necessity of having communities. And thirdly, to talk about good economics. And I'll try to address those issues for you as quickly as I can. But before I do anything, let me say this, actually this question. Can we talk? Can we talk like Joan Rivers said? I'm going to say some things now that might be offensive to some of you. And so I'm going to apologize to those who I know I'm going to offend a little later in my speech, okay, my presentation. I know some of you got these sacred issues about you can't talk about my politician, you can't talk about my minister. I don't care about them. I don't care about black folks. So I'm apologizing to you now. And those who want to call me a bad name, you go ahead and call me like that. So Dr. Anderson, I disagree with you. You're an SOB. Go ahead and say it. Okay? Now, so if we can talk, I'm going to take this coat off. We're going to get down to it, okay? Now, let me start off by, let's see, what happened to my PowerPoint? I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation so you can see some of the things that track along with me, so you understand what I'm talking about.
You got it right here, brother. She's going to do it right here.
Okay, and with some of the things I'm going to talk about can be a little complicated. Okay, here we are. And people always ask me, say, Dr. S, why do you always focus on black folk? And I've done it so long, I guess when I was over education in the state of Florida, I got surprised one evening. I went to a convention, they had about 2,000 or 3,000 people there. They called me up out of the audience and said, "Would you please come up to the stage?" I said, "Yes, I will." I went up to the stage, they pulled out a big rocking chair for me. I was really talking about my age and my known status, you know. But anyway, maturity. They asked me to come up to the stage, they put out a rocking chair. I sat down in the rocking chair. Then they went and got a cigar band stuck on my finger. Then they got one of these windy crowns, yellow crowns stuck on my head. And then they gave me a little scepter and said, "Dr. S, we hereby crown you the king of the lowlies." I swear you the king of the lowlies. You more than any other black person, we don't always like to talk about black people and focus on black people. The proportion of the parity terms are back where we were in 1860 on the eve of the Civil War. We're in deep trouble in America. And so what I'm going to do this evening is try to go across these issues and show you what we're doing wrong. Up front, you already know, in my book, Black Labor, White Wealth, I wrote that book to systematically track and show you exactly what the dominant white society did over a 1,300-year period. Every technique, every strategy, every custom, and in law to put you into the lowest part of a ditch, to put you in a racial monopoly game at the bottom of it, that you'll be totally equipped to play this game. And that was called slavery, and later on Jim Crow segregation. And we were in trouble. And the Black Labor and White Wealth book tracked all that for you. The Power Economics says to you, on the other hand, that even though whites now got a monopoly is not perfect. White racism is not perfect. You can't beat it by following the Power Economics principles. You can't beat it because white racism is not perfect. And so I put out a book called Power Economics that says that everything that was done to you, here's how you can beat it. But you got to move quickly before the doors close on you. As I said that by year 2000, Hispanics will displace you. You will no longer be the dominant majority population in America. You become a minority population. What did you gain out of that? Did they redistribute some of the resources? No. They didn't redistribute the resources. What they gave you were things that are unmeasurable, intangible, indefinite. Some of my good friends, and I would ask them, "What are you looking for?" They said, "Well, what we want," and I understood how they were doing it, and they were right in doing it. But they didn't get further enough down the line to see what the integration is going to do. And they asked them, "What do you want?" They said, "We want freedom." But you can't merge with freedom. And the white folks get in, is what you want, is freedom. There y'all got it. So what else y'all want? Well, we want equal opportunity. There you got it. What else y'all want? Well, we want equal tangible. We didn't get into tangible things. So because they left us at home. Where in this country, the narrative result of slavery, Jim Crow segregation, whites said at that point, they had population numbers. Why did they have population numbers? Because the first thing that put in place after 1789, when the Declaration of Independence was approved and ratified in 1789, by 1979, the first act of Congress was to pass the first immigration law. The first immigration law says this is going to be a white nation. And no blacks can come here unless you come here as slaves. And what did that do? That made us the only permanent minority in this country. Now why is that important? Because if you're the only permanent minority, look what position you're in a society called. They said, well, it's against the law for us to try to do what everybody else do because of the Richmond and Hart decision, which says that that a minority cannot, you cannot single out a minority and give them some preferential treatment. That's a Supreme Court ruling. I said, the way you beat them is quit calling yourself a minority. In Richmond, Virginia, you're the dominant population. Yes, they went to the Supreme Court and they lost. If I had been to the Supreme Court, I'd have ruled against them too.
because they had no business going to the Supreme Court asking for a set-aside for minority, and they make up 90% of the damn population. Now, I built WWD in Tallahassee, Florida in 1972, the Epic Station. I also had interest in the AM station in the top of the Superdome in New Orleans. I fought to get control of me, because I could then dictate, because Tallahassee was the capital of Florida. But now, right now, here we are now, we have gone backwards. We own less black radio stations today than we did in 1970. You lost over half your radio stations. When the Telcap Act was lifted in 1996, you started going backwards. At least one time we had some weekly newspapers. Most of them going out of business. Where is your black daily newspaper? Where is it? I go around in most urban cities, I can find daily Hispanic newspapers. Where are the black newspapers? Where are your black cable systems? Where are your black TV stations? Y'all get my point? Yeah. Go down to the next one. Like the official. Right now, we have less than one hand. I would look at the same results in this confidence is. Guess what? Not only didn't we improve, we went backwards. Why? Because there's no direct link or connection between putting a black person in a public office, elected to the office, and black folk getting benefits. And that totally destroys the whole concept of participating in politics. Politics is based on the simple premise of quid pro quo. One hand washes the other. You take care of me, I scratch your back. I put you in the elected office, you owe me. Except for black people. It doesn't apply to black folk. It applies to everybody else. We get no benefits by putting a person in the public office. Because you know why? The first thing they're going to do when they get elected to office, that nobody else on earth can do. As soon as a black person gets elected to a public office, the first thing they're going to say, I'm here to represent all the people.
That's right. That's right.
In a nation of representative government, which means you're supposed to represent the backwards. We've been taught to see everything's upside down and backwards. The slave codes of 1705 spell out very specifically how whites were to behave and how blacks were to behave. That a white person could never give respect to a black person, could never call him Mr., or never give him a major title, or never put him over a white person. And the same slave codes on the other side says that defined what a black person could or could not do. He could not look a white person in the eye. He could not look down at a white person. He could not talk to a white person with his hat on. He could not play games with white folk. He had to step off the sidewalk when whites came along. He could not touch a white woman. Those were the slave codes. In 1710, we had similar slave codes. And they came out with a policy called meritorious manumission. Meritorious manumission, which says if we can find some black people, who would do three things, we'll make exceptions. We'll let meritorious manumission mean earned. Manumission means freedom. If they can demonstrate one or three things to us, we'll let a few of these blacks get out, because those are good Negroes. One, if they could prove that they could invent something that would increase wealth building for whites by inventing something, picking more cotton, or doing whatever it was, then that white person would say, this is a good one, we'll let him go, we'll set him free. Secondly, if he in fact could protect a white family, or save a white person's life, he could get meritoriously manumitted. Or thirdly, he could be manumitted and set free if he in fact would squeal on, tell on, or inform on, or block his people from a slave revolt, or trying to run free. That was called meritorious manumission. It was put in place in 1710. Now you all start talking about, well, you know, Willie Lynch left. Ain't no such thing as Willie Lynch. I never could track that down. Ain't no such thing as Willie Lynch. That's the stuff people made up. But the meritorious manumission was a law in Virginia, started in Virginia, South Carolina. It says, we will set a black person free if he in fact would squeal on and tell on what another black person is trying to do that would benefit black folk. And that's why, in going back and checking what white folks classified as about 367 possible slave revolts, a black person squealed in every possible revolt.
Vice person or congressional person, they represent all the people. See, Strong Thurman coming up from South Carolina, Strong Thurman and all these representatives now I'm running to now. I was in the White House with President Carter. I was Assistant Secretary in Commerce, one of the first black Assistant Secretary of the United States Commerce. And I also said as the first and only black as the chairman for economic development for Eastern and Southern states, where I chaired meetings for governors, okay, for economic development. And at that point in time, we talked about, about elected officials. Most of the white elected officials were not coming up to Washington, D.C. to represent all the blacks and everybody in their states. Strong Thurman never said he could represent blacks. He represented his own political constituency, which is basically white. It's like right now in Mississippi, always in the southern states, now in Kansas. They don't say they're going to represent black folk. They represent the people that put them in office, which is basically white. And so you must elect officials in your community that will represent you and speak for you first and foremost. That doesn't mean they don't listen to other groups. But if you're going to give out some money, if you give one to everybody, give 2 or 3 to blacks. And Governor Ashley taught me that when I was in education. He said, take care of your own people first and foremost. Next one for me, please. I'm talking about the whole bunch of like that this afternoon. And once you build these communities, functional communities, then you get to the next level, which is called group. I keep hearing black folks saying, I can't deal with Joe Blow, I can't deal with Bob Long because I don't trust him or something like that. You cannot trust anybody that's not in your community. You understand what I'm saying? You're not going to go outside and you don't trust people. If I walk into an office, somebody I don't know that way, you say, come in here, doctor, I was stripped naked. I say, wait a minute. You trust people that are coming, that you kind of got a sense of community with, and you begin to understand and relate to. Then you would trust people. People will not invest with you into your businesses, become partners, and give you your money until you have a community so you can group trust. And once you get group trust, the next level up, you get cooperation. People will cooperate with you when they come to understand and trust you. They will cooperate and say, okay, here's the money, send me the invoice, and send me the receipt whenever you get around to it, and I trust you. And lastly, once you do that, then you can start getting group accountability. You can start holding all these elected officials accountable once you get a community. But you cannot hold your elected politicians, you cannot hold the civil rights groups accountable now because you don't have communities. And once you successfully discovered America, everybody was still practicing mercantilism. But Pope Innocent in 1888 had set out a public edict saying that if you're going to try to do labor, use blacks. Because back in 1444, Henry the Navigator had picked up about 16 black slaves off Africa and given them to the Pope. The Pope had used those blacks with free labor up until about 1488. In 1488, Pope Innocent from the Catholic Church says use black folk. So by the 1500s, after Columbus discovered America, they then said, whoa, we got a new concept, no more mercantilism. Let's now use capitalism. So what is capitalism? This is what I want you all to practice in the future. What is capitalism? Capitalism means owning and controlling the land, the tools, the resources, and using other people's labor to enrich themselves. Let me give it to you again. Capitalism means owning and controlling the land, the tools, and the resources, and using other people's labor to enrich yourselves. That's called capitalism. Capitalism came into existence in about 1502. And that became the dominant way, and started in Portugal and in Italy. And people began to write, that's most of the banking system started, like the present-day banking system started in Portugal. That's when the whole capitalism thing started and finally moved to England. That's capitalism. Now, W.D. Du Bois defined capitalism almost similar. Du Bois said that capitalism is like owning 4 ears of corn. You eat, save, and sell, and in a year, you save the seeds for next year's planting. That is capitalism. Eating, saving, and selling, or if you go back to the 1500s, owning and controlling the land, the tools, and resources, and using somebody else's labor. You got $1, you only got 2 cents to run a household, and so you don't have any wealth. And so right now, the wealth cycle is over here manipulating symbols. Now, what's going to happen, and this is what y'all got to watch out for, is that when we have a major instance of terrorism or a major storm, magnetic storm, is all that information going to disappear. All that information will disappear. And all this stuff, all this data in the libraries, and all this information in the banks and everything else, all that stuff is going to be wiped out. And again, what's going to happen? The people that be the wealthiest people are going to be back at 12 o'clock. Those who own the land, resources, and produce food, water, medicine, and stuff like that will take care of it. Next one, read fast story, please. Let me see that one. Bob, I know Bob is on me. Let me see it. Now, empowerment using wealth. Black Americans are burdened by you carry 6 to 8 times everything that's bad. You only control less than 1.5% of anything. And the average white person has 3,500 times the wealth. The average white person right now has 3,500 times more money and wealth than the average black person. You cannot compete with them. If you don't do what Bob said, go back and build these communities, you cannot compete. You can't compete because whites got too much wealth and too much power. It is wealth that decides your equal opportunities. You have no equal opportunity unless you only control some money and wealth. Next one for me, please. Now, and that's also true around the world. Blacks in America control less than 1/2 of 1% of the wealth. That means that you cannot compete. You cannot compete again with Africa. And we got over 300. We have about $300 trillion. We have $300 trillion worth of wealth on the earth. Out of over $300 trillion on earth, guess what? Black people still own less than 1/2 of the wealth on the earth. Even though we make up about 25% of the population. Black people make up 25% of the population of the earth. And we control less than 1/2 of 1% of $300 trillion floating around the earth. We don't even have wealth any place on the earth. And what I did a comparative analysis for you, per capita. You see how the wealth is distributed? Australia had the highest, then Canada, then Japan, then USA, then Russia, even down to Mexicans, and blacks all across Africa, sub-Africa, they have less than $1,000 worth of wealth per in the country. You send Haitians back. They don't push back on anything. You got to learn how to organize and push back on everything that you can. And that's why in Africa right now, the wealth in Africa is less nationally for all those blacks, which makes up 24% of the world's population, got less than $1,000 worth of annual income. The next one very quickly for me. Okay, last one is disposable income. Let me show you the chart. They got to go in. Now. Right? Can I get 10 minutes?
Where's Simon?
This Negro invite me to come all the way to Washington, D.C. You see that? At my own expense. I don't get paid. I know my fee is normally come in and do it frequently. And he said, you won't out too bad. You got to leave now. Go to the next one very quickly. A couple charts, Bob. This is the thing. This is quickly. White businesses get 95 to 96% of all black money. Asians and Hispanics pick up about 3%. Black business gets less than 2% of the money that the black folk. That's out of the so-called $3 trillion you have income. That's how it's dispersed. Only 2% stays in the black community. Next one for me, please. The reason Asians have the highest revenue level in America, and the whites are next, Hispanics after them, and blacks last. And the reason Asians have the highest income, even higher than whites, you know why? Because that's why they don't have any. You don't have any Asian prisoners. You don't have any Asian unemployment, and they got more. And why? Next one will tell you why. Push it for me, baby. Here's why. Go to the next one. Next one. Well, the reason they don't have it is because here's why. It's not on there. I'm going to stop now. Because 1 out of every 10 Asians are in business. Right. 1 out of every 34 whites in business. 1 out of every 55 Hispanics are in business. 1 out of 104 blacks in business. There's a direct link between going into business and being on welfare, food stamps, being in prison, and having high unemployment. The more you got, the more businesses you have over here, the greater your living, everything works out for you. At the bottom, when you got no businesses, you're going to have high unemployment, you're going to have crime, you're going to have health problems and everything else. That's why everybody else is outdoing us in all respect. I thought I had that on one of my charts. Push it up, I'm through. Let's see. Push it. Oh, this is the last one. This is Bob. Number 7. Always build the economy first. Build your economy first. Everything is like a 5-story building. 5-story building. This is the last thing I'm going to say to you. It's a 5-story building. Always first try to build your economy. Build your economy on the first floor. It's a 5-story building. Economy is on the first floor. Politics on the second floor. Police force and courts on the third floor. Media, broadcasting, and newspaper on the 4th floor. Education on the 5th floor. Now, if you don't have it, what you got to do is build an economy first. Build your businesses and your economy in a black business community that Bob is telling you about.
Once you begin to bring in enough wealth and get enough businesses, what you do, you take your money off the first floor and you use it to buy the politicians on the second floor. You buy politicians. You don't have to vote if you got money and wealth. You take your money and you buy all the politicians. And all the politicians you can't buy, you rent or lease them. Then you go to the third floor. The third floor, again, is the police and the court. Your money off the first floor will determine what the police and the courts are going to do. And then and you take your money also, what Bob was talking about, and you buy your television stations and radio stations and print newspapers on the fourth floor and print what you need. You cannot own and control radio stations unless you got ads or somebody buying time on your station. Without the ads and the advertising dollars, you cannot do these things. You got to have an economy on the first floor. Then the last floor is education. You're wasting your time sending all these black kids to school to get a job so they go work in the white communities in a white business. You got to figure out how to get those kids educated on the fifth floor and come back to the first floor and build your own community and build your own businesses. But black folk keep telling about education is the key. Education has never been the key. Never been. All you got to do is got all these black kids with master's degrees working at McDonald's and Burger King because you don't have any businesses. And that's why black folk right now hold the record for the greatest educational achievement on earth. In 1950, for instance, a black person with a college education could not make as much as a white high school dropout because you don't have any businesses and industries when they work in their own neighborhoods. So quit telling black folk to jump all the way to the fifth floor and come back down. You go get an education, do anything you want. That's a lie. That's why all these other groups come here and can't read and write and can start a business the next day after they get here. They have a coffee shop, a donut shop, or doing something. They can't even speak English, but they got a business, hiring their own people in their own communities. I quit, but I love you all because Bob is wanting me out of here.
Oh, yeah.